Well, today we're doing Python 3. We're going to be talking about for loops, while loops, and nesting. And we're also going to be getting a little bit of lists in there, and then also what it means, what we're going to be using the time library just for a little exercise. So for loops, the way you write a for loop is you start with for. It's kind of like an if statement. And so then you have an iterator, and I'm going to use X. I can use any letter I want. I could use even a word there. So for X in, and then I'm going to use a string, and I'm just going to say Mars, okay? Don't forget my colon at the end. Again, the tabbing over is going to be automatic in most IDEs. It's very important that you tab over so it knows that it's in a loop. But I'm going to say print, let's just say X. Now what's going to happen is this iterator is going to bounce through every part of that string. So I run right here, and we're going to see what happens. Boom, Mars, M-A-R-S. Now, that's a very simple for loop. There's another, I should show, there's another one. There's what's called range function. This is used all the time. So if you want to do something, you want to do something, but you want to do it 100 times, 150 times, 1,000,000 times, and then you want to stop. You would just simply type in for X in range, that number, and then I'm using this simple print function because we know it, and it shows in the output window, and so I'm going to say print hello world. Hello world. There we go. Misspelled. Who cares? And there we go. Printed 100 times. Now, so that's your very, very basic for loop. We're going to get a little more complicated in a minute here, but first I want to talk about lists. So when you're doing for loops, lists are critical. So you have you have multiple items that are stored in one variable. So my variable is planets, and I'm going to do Mercury. I don't care about spelling right now. Venus, Earth, and then Mars. Okay, so that is I set up a variable with multiple things in there. Instead of one thing in a box, it's 4 different things, 4 different planets. And then I'll say for, I'm going to change my iterator, I'll just call it I, okay? It doesn't matter what you call it, you just need to be consistent. So for I in planets, and we can kind of assume what's going to happen here. And then we'll say print I. Now, when I run this, we're going to be seeing each one listed out because they're all separated by a comma and they are in the square brackets. So that is how a list works. And you can use, and here's a list in a very simple for loop. So let's go. I'm going to delete this. I could comment it out, but I'm just going to delete it just to keep my screen clean. And now I'm going to do something. I'll import time later. But let's do while loops now. So with a while loop, it's very similar to a for loop, but it's all about conditional. So again, remember the true statement that we talked about last time with ifs? That's how a while loop works. A while loop is like a cross between a for loop and an if statement. So I'm going to say while true, then we'll say, or actually better yet, I'll say while, okay, sure, I'll say while true, and then I'm going to say print hello world. Okay, and when I run this, I'm going to get hello world misspelled forever. It won't stop because nothing is telling it to stop. Because true is just saying, okay, you're saying it's true. It keeps running and running and running. So I'll go ahead and stop that. And then, but let's make a variable number. We're going to call this variable number, and we'll say 1. And then we will say while number is less than, this is an example of how a while loop works. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this thing time out after the condition turns into false, because right now it's going to be true. So number obviously is 1, and that's less than, we'll say 10. And while 1 is, well, number, I could just say while number is less than 10, we are going to print, let's see here. How do I do this? Then I'm going to say number. So I can put other conditions inside this while loop. I can put a for loop in here. I can put an if statement in here. I can do all sorts of stuff. I can reassign a variable, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. So I'm saying number equals number plus 1. So, and then I will print hello world. So so you can watch what's happening here. You have the number is 1, and then you go into this while loop. The number is 1. It's less than 10. Then the number here changes. Number is 1 plus 1 equals 2. And then it goes through again. And then it's 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6. So how many times is it going to say hello world misspelled? There we go. What is that? 10 times or so. It starts at 0, by the way. Now, so now we can do, we could actually, why don't we just go ahead and print that number? This is really important to understand this. So again, starts at, since it starts at 0, it doesn't actually say 1, starts at 2, because again, we haven't printed that number until number equals number plus 1. That's why it actually starts at 2. If I printed the number first, then you can see what'll happen. You can only imagine, well, you can guess, and you'll probably be right, what would happen. And let's go ahead and run that. Starts at 1 and then goes until 9. Now, just because this is kind of fun, I like this library. It's just called a time. This is a library. Library is like a whole bunch of code that somebody else wrote, and it might continually improve over time. It's a built-in library. You can just simply write import time in the top. And then let's go ahead, and you saw how fast that was going. Let's go ahead and say, then in the middle here, we'll say time.sleep. This is a really nice little function, time.sleep1. That means 1 second. And in Python 3, you can actually do that as a float. It doesn't have to be an integer. And now watch what will happen. 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is getting a little boring, but you see the point. So now let's go ahead and do a let's make that go a little faster. So I'm just going to say 0.1, and then we will say for I in range, why don't we say 3? Okay. Now we're going to take all of this, and I'm going to show you how to do a nested loop. There we go. That was it. So what's happening here is it's saying you do this 3 times, and then you're going to take this number is 1, and you're going to go number 1, and we're going to do exactly what we saw. It's going to run a little faster, but we're going to do this 3 times, and we'll see what happens. There we go. And it's going to keep going, and then it's going to stop at 9. There. This is how a nested for loop works. Actually, it's a while loop nested in a for loop. But you should be able to get the picture. You can nest an if statement in here. You can nest a for loop within a for loop, a while loop within a while loop, all to do different kinds of things. Try to think it through in your head first, and then you should be able to get it to work. And so this actually, by the way,